Hello everyone, welcome to video number 4. In this video, we will be discussing Geometry Manager Grid. So let's get started. So the Grid Geometry Manager. So we already used the Pack Geometry Manager, but in Tkinter, Grid and Pack are both geometry managers that help you organize and arrange widgets within a window. But they have different approaches. Grid is suitable for more complex layouts, and the Grid Geometry Manager in Tkinter is used to organize widgets in a table-like structure. And each widget is placed in a specific row and column. So when I say a table-like structure, so basically, if you look at this GUI right here, you can think of this as this, where you can see we have some, we actually have one column right now. So this is how grid works. So we're gonna have a column. So if you look at this column, I'm gonna call this column 0. And this one will be row 0. So column and row both start at 0. So if you look at from this side, this is row number 0, this is row number 1, then we have row number 2, 3, 4. But if you look at the column, there is only one column right now. If you have another button like Coke, instead of Coke, if you have a Pepsi button, let's say right here, we can say this is column number 1, and so on. Okay, so we'll look at that more details, but first let's create this GUI. It's a very simple GUI. You can see that it says press a button to continue, and then I have these 4 buttons with their price given. So let's first get started and create this. So I'm gonna first erase all this. So just the basic stuff, import Tkinter as tk, then we have our root, tk.tk, using the tk class, and then the root dot main loop. This is how we get started with our window where you're gonna place items. The first thing we're gonna do is create the button. Create the label that says press a button to continue. So let's call this display button, for example. Sorry, not a button. This is a label. So tk.label. You're gonna have root text. We're gonna say press a button to continue. Okay, and we're going to use the grid geometry method. So instead of using pack, you will be starting using grid. So if I click on run, you should see the label. Press a button to continue. We are using the color pink here, so I can just change the color. So background color is okay. So now let's start creating the buttons. So first we have a Coke button. So let's call this Coke button. So tk dot button root text equal to Coke. And we want to show the price below, which is 250. Remember, we can use the \n to create a new line, 250. And the button color is orange, so I can use the background color orange, and that's it. And I go button dot grid. So no difference, just instead of pack, we're using grid. Let's stop and run it again just to see. Yep, they can see it here. Now I'm going to create the other buttons. So I'm going to just copy this and paste it 3 more times. So instead of Coke, I'm going to have Kit Kat. So let's call this KitKat button. KitKat. The price is $250. Same price. Excuse me. KitKat button. Then we have Doritos and Lay's. And the Doritos is $210. And this is going to be Doritos. And then finally we have Lay's. So Lay's is $275. And the color is still orange. And then we have Lay's. Okay, so we have our 4 buttons and a display label. So as you can see, this looks exactly like this. Now, what do you think about this look? If you look at this, you will notice that the Doritos is slightly bigger than Coke, Kit Kat, and Lay's because it has more characters compared to Coke, Kit Kat, and Lay's, which makes it look okay, but it doesn't look very nice. If you think about giving them to a customer, this doesn't look very nice. So instead, what we want to do is we want to make it look like this. So you can see this looks a little better than what we had. So we have 4 buttons and they have some space, they have the same size, so it looks better than this one, right? So that's what you're gonna make using the grid option. But before we do that, we're gonna also have a fixed width set for each of these buttons. So let's have a variable and let's call this button width 10. So I have this here. Say button width. I say actually fixed button width. So I'm gonna say button width equal to 10. Now, what is this 10? So this 10 is called 10 pixels. So pixels are like picture elements, and pixels are actually the smallest units of a digital image or display. So 10 is not like 10 centimeters, 10 meters. It's about 10 pixels. So you're gonna have 10 pixel size for our button. Okay, that's what it means for pixels. You have probably heard of pixels when you look at an image or when you watch a video. Let's say, for example, if you look at a YouTube video, you may see 1080p, 720p. So that's talking about the display. Okay, so pixels are the smallest unit, and we're using 10 pixels because you can see our display is not that big. So 10 pixels should be enough for displaying the button size. Okay, so once we have the button width 10, we have to pass that in our buttons. So each buttons should have the size 10. So what we can do is we can pass this as a parameter. There is a parameter called width. So just like the parameter text bg root, we have another parameter called width. So we can set the width equal to the button width, because that's what we define here as 10. And then I can just copy this, including the comma, and pass it to my other buttons. So this button will have the same size, and same size. So now if I click on run, you will see that they all have the same size of 10 pixels. So the button now have a fixed size. So that solves one of our problems. That is, instead of having different sizes based on the text, we have a fixed width for each of our buttons. The next thing is about the arrangement of the button. As I mentioned before, let me explain that one more time so that it'll make more sense. As I said, when we say grid, it's like a table-like structure. So you can think of this as this. So I'm drawing these grids. So right now, if you notice, this is column 0. This is column 1. Remember, the vertical lines are called column, and this is row. So this is row number 0. That means the label is at 0th row. I'm going to call this row 0. This is 1. This is 2. And this is our column. So there are only 2 columns here, column 0 and column 1. And there are 3 rows there, 0, 1, 2. So when you use grid, this press a button to continue, its position is 0, column number 0, and row number 0. So that's the location if we use the grid geometry manager. If you look at Coke, the column is still 0, but the row is 1. Okay, so you have to look at the row and also think about the column. If you look at Lay's, if you notice, the column is going to be 1 and the row is going to be 2. So that's how we calculate the position of the widgets. Okay, so we can use this position in our grid geometry manager. Okay, so grid, it arranges widgets in a table-like structure of rows and columns. Uses suitable for more complex layouts where widgets need to be aligned in rows and columns. So first thing is we already used grid instead of using pack. So all of them should be grid. We can't use both grid and pack. If you use grid, you should continue with grid all over the project. You can't use grid and pack at the same time. If you do that, it will give you an error. Okay, so the grid can take the following 4 parameters. It can take more, but for now we will start these 4. Row, column, padx, and pady. So we'll see what each of them does. We already learned about row and column. So if you look at this, as I said, Coke will have a column 0. So you will set the column as 0. Row will be 1. So that's how you position all this. Okay, so now let's start changing them. So how do we put the button in 2 rows? As I mentioned that if you think about the Coke, the row should be 1. If you notice, the Coke row is 1. The column is going to be 0. And if you notice, there are 2 extra parameters that we're using. One is called padx, another is called pady. So what's padx and pady? So if you notice here, let me erase this first. If you notice here, there is a space right here. And if you notice, there is also a space right here. Also, there is a space right here. Also, there is a space right here. Also, if you notice here, there is also a space right here too. So all these extra spaces are made by that padx and pady. So if you think about padx, it means adding 10 pixels of space to the right and the left of your button Coke. That is your padx. Let me just put it here, x. This is x. So again, if you want to add additional spacing to the left and right of your widget, you will be using padx. So padx 10 means you are adding 10 pixels of space to the left and right of the Coke button. Pady means adding 10 pixels of space to the top and the bottom of your widget. So you will see 10 pixels here and 10 pixels here. So that's the meaning of padx and pady. So that's the 4 parameter we will use. Again, row indices start from 0. So row 1 means the button will be placed in the 2nd row. So remember, this is the 0th row. This is the 1st row. Same for columns. So column indices also start from 0. This is your 0 and this is your 1. There will be 10 pixels of empty space on the left and right sides of the button, and there will be 10 pixels of empty space above and below the button. Okay, so let's fix the code button first. So you're gonna use row 1. So let's go to our code button first. Let's first delete all this. So the code button dot read. So this is where we're gonna start using row and column. So row, if you remember, row should be 1. Again, why this is 1? Because press a button to continue is at 0 at row. So code should be 1, but the column is still 0. So row 0, column, sorry, row 1, column 0. Pad x is equal to 10. Again, pad x means adding spaces to the right and left, and pad y means top and the bottom. So 10. So now if I click on run, let's see what happens. So you're not going to see a lot of difference, but you'll notice we have some space to the top and the bottom, and to the left and the right as well. Okay, so we'll do the same for KitKat. So if you notice, the KitKat should be here. Again, if you look at this, this is 0, this is 1, this is 0, this is 1. So if you look at KitKat, the row should be 1 and column should be 1. So let's change that for KitKat. Row and column both should be 1. So row 1, column 1. Padx, we'll keep it same. Okay, then we have our Doritos. If we look at here, Doritos should be row number 2, column number 0. So let's actually copy this, and then I'll just change the row and column. So Doritos should be 2. Column should be 0. And then we have Lace. Column should, sorry, those should be 2. Column should be 1. Yes. Right now, stop and run. Now you will see what we were looking for. So press that button to continue, then Coke, KitKat, Doritos, and Lace. Even though we added the pixel, you may notice that the spacing doesn't exactly look right. You may see, okay, this is less, this is more. Why is that? Okay, so we'll talk about this later, that why even though we set the pixels 10, it doesn't exactly look right. So we'll have to do some other changes too. So to accurately see the way you want the image to be displayed. So we'll talk about this later, about fixing the width correctly. But for now, this is what we have. So I hope this makes sense. How do we use row, column, padx, pad y? Your homework will be this one, assignment number 4. So you're gonna create what we had before. So Coke, KitKat, Doritos, Lace, then we'll fix those button sizes. And then you're gonna have 6 of them. So you're gonna have Coke, Pepsi, water, KitKat, Doritos, Lace. You can see we have 6 widgets. And you can use padx, pad y set to 10 pixels. So that's how it should work. Okay. All right, guys. So thank you for watching this video. And in the next video, I will solve assignment number 4. Bye, everyone.